Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Business Ninjas. This is your host, Kelsey, today. I'm here with Chris Godsoul. He's the co-CEO at iVirtual Technologies, and we're excited to have him on the show today.
Great to be here. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you too, Chris. So, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been involved in building organizations for the last sort of 27 to 30 years, ranging from health-oriented businesses to forestry technology to anatomical simulation. I've been building organizations since I was basically in my 20s. Of the three that I built, two have been acquired and one is like 27 years old. The organization that I'm building right now is by far the most ambitious thing that I've ever been involved with.
And why do you say that?
Well, because we're trying to tackle a fundamental question about how does your identity and how are your values and your personal and private information distributed around the world through this sort of channel of consent. It's a fascinating space, and it's one that most people are somewhat aware of. Certainly if you're in Europe, you're really aware of the idea that your data is being collected through this portal called cookie management, right? So you accept cookies and you're actually entering into a legal contract for how your data is going to be used, who it can be shared with. And in the United States and in Canada, I think most people are aware of this kind of cookie management process. But in the next year or so, I think we're all going to be way more aware of it, because the legislative framework for how this data is going to be collected, who can see it, it's all going to affect that banner that we see on websites when we go and we either click accept all, or we click reject all, or we try to manage our cookie preferences. So iVirtual Technologies actually makes best-in-class software for making this process easier to use for website visitors, making it legally compliant for website owners, and then eliminating this nonsense, which is that when you see these website banners pop up, who has time to read them? They're written by a lawyer. My 16-year-old daughter probably has entered into 20 of these agreements in the last 24 hours. She's not qualified to determine how her name, likeness, image, identity, and data can be used by third parties, who can track her, who can develop profiles about her, how her private information can be sold. She is not qualified to do that, and governments know that, and they're starting to crack down on how this stuff occurs. So our whole vision was to create a software that users could easily navigate and create. In fact, we have a user-generated terms and conditions platform that is really the architecture and engine behind all of our products. And then we work with brands who aren't afraid of putting a branded cookie banner in front of you to say, these things are complicated. You can agree to your terms and conditions now, but you can come back later and you can change them, or you can set your terms and conditions based on your values profile. So there's a whole new dynamic way to achieve this really $30 billion question, which is how do you create meaningful consent for the acquisition and distribution of private data? All of our data goes through this moment of user consent. And there's only one kind of consent. It's meaningful consent, not implied consent, not consent that said, I thought if I click this button, if I don't agree to these terms and conditions for cookies, then the website won't work properly, or all of that is bogus. All of that was designed. In fact, most of the software that has been created was designed not for meaningful consent. It was designed for people to click accept. And brands know that people don't trust that stuff anymore. And the laws in Europe and Canada and the United States are saying you're not allowed to just ask somebody for consent and then imply that a website won't work properly, or cookies make the website perform better. That's just not true. And some cookies are incredibly useful, and some cookies are incredibly invasive, and you just can't ask people to accept them all. So we make software to make it easier for people and better for brands.
Wow. So I I'll be honest with you. I thought that cookies would affect how the website worked. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I frankly had no idea that did not impact the user interface.
So basically, the way it works is that if you use cookies on your website that are functional cookies, and they're truly functional cookies, they're designed to make the website work better for you, then those cookies, you don't need consent for those. But there are specific technical requirements that describe what a functional cookie is compared to what, say, a marketing or targeting cookie is.
Right.
A marketing or targeting cookie might live on your phone forever, and it might track you and sell or collect information that is then sold about your geolocation, about your behavior, about all sorts of bits of information, which frankly might be important to the way that products and services are designed for you. But you should have control over who gets to see that information, whether you trust the vendor that's actually accessing that information. So we're taking a really complicated idea, which is how are these cookies installed on your phone, tablet, or computer, and how do you manage the process so that trusted suppliers access data, and ones that are less trusted probably will only get functional cookies, and they can't track you, and they certainly shouldn't do it for kids. Like, parents should have the ability to set up their cookie management preferences really easily. So we have a whole platform that allows websites to have a responsible relationship with kids, where parents can set up a whole platform for whether or not you can track my kids or not. And the thing that is maybe in Europe is just a little more advanced is that most people are aware in Europe that websites have an obligation to ask you for consent. And just as recently as May, the European Union ruled that you now have to offer website visitors a reject all button. So when you go to a website in Europe, it'll say accept, manage, or reject all. Well, guess what 95% of people are doing?
Accept all.
Reject all.
Reject all.
Yeah, because people don't trust these things. Right, yeah. So in Europe, where they have a sophisticated understanding of this stuff, and they also know, look, I want to go to the website. I just want to use the website. And they are rejecting all the cookies. So this is kind of becoming like a problem now for websites that were dependent on tracking some data. Right. So we create a solution for brands that allow them to instead of reject all, to earn the trust of their members, and that if you're a trusted brand, you can actually access things like marketing targeting cookies. We have a fashion brand in London, UK, for example, that's all sustainable fashion, member-driven organization, peer-to-peer marketing. So they have this really trusted environment. We can actually audit that trust. And so in that environment, that brand is accessing more targeting and advertising cookies. But with the old way of doing things, the way the law is set up, most people are just going to press the reject all button, which is sort of the nuclear bomb for data, and just disappears. So we think there's a better way. It's a smarter, more dynamic way where brands are aligned with their users' trust-based preferences.
Talk to me a little bit how a website can become one of your trusted websites.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so first of all, our software it's free for smaller brands and for nonprofit organizations. For companies that want to use our full branded experience, it's $45 per month per domain, and it instantly makes those brands compliant with the laws in their jurisdiction, whether it's California, whether it's Canada, where we're from. We're a Toronto-based company in Canada, or whether you're anywhere in Europe. Next, once it's up and running on your website, you're using it the way you would any other consent management software, except that you can engage with your users and invite them to join a free privacy portal called You Own You, where they can join up and they can set their preferences. And that will include this trust score that ultimately will affect, if you're a high trusted partner, it'll automatically change your settings for cookies, allowing trusted brands to access better data and better relationships.
Wow, interesting. So what makes you folks stand out?
Well, the first and foremost thing is that these cookie banners, brands hate them. The marketing people aren't involved. It's an IT decision. They look like insurance contracts that are slapped onto websites. So the first thing that you'll notice with ours is that it's part of the website. The branding and the IT team and the legal team are all getting along. It's like it's beautifully branded cookie banners on your website.
Yeah.
And secondly, the thing that stands out is that any of the website visitors that use the free privacy portal, once they set their terms and conditions and they go back to that website, they'll never see one of those banners again.
Okay.
Because the website's accepting your terms and conditions for privacy. And you can go on to your privacy portal and you can change your terms and conditions for cookies and other things. And the website will dynamically agree to those terms, and you won't see that banner pop up again.
Right.
So you can think about kids, for example. You've got like a 13-year-old teenager in your life. As a parent, you can go and set those preferences. Now they go onto a website. We have a video game customer called Nebulae, and they use this dynamic system which allows parents to set their terms and conditions for who can track them and stuff. So it's sort of a three-dimensional tool, and it's highly differentiated.
Interesting.
And it's super easy to use. To set it up on your website, it takes 15 minutes. And it's set up on any website, whether you manage 100 domains or whether you have your own personal, small business.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's very user friendly because you folks are an extension of that team.
Exactly. And the first thing that you notice when you go onto a website that has a really intrusive cookie banner is you can tell the marketing team and the IT team and legal team are like arm wrestling. They have to put this thing on, but it's ugly. It looks like who can read that? Right. You want to go onto a website, or I've been in situations in Europe where we have a lot of customers where I've been like rushing to catch an airplane and I have to accept the terms and conditions for the airline, right? But I don't have time to read the contract, and I'm in the privacy business, right? So it actually makes no sense to have these contracts that you have to read and accept before entering into the store. Imagine if you walked into a shopping mall and you wanted to go into a fashion store, and before they entered, they made you sign a contract before you before you can buy, jeans and shoes. Right. That's what it's like right now for data. So we're getting rid of that process, making it possible to be pre-qualified and making it so that brands can design the experience as while being compliant with the law and building better relationships.
And I'm sure too, your analogy of walking into a store, having to sign that contract, hypothetically, every time you walked into the store, not only is it a burden for the company, but it's also a burden on the customers too, and may affect how they view the usage of that website, right? Absolutely.
These cookie banners, if you go to the UK or France or Germany right now and you ask people about cookie banners, they're going to swear. Like they're just going to go, I hate these things because they pop up and they're here, but they're here to stay. And they're actually coming to the United States and Canada in force. Both the United States and Canada have upped their enforcement regulations on this subject because it's controversial. Even though these banners are ugly, the fact is that cookies are tracking devices. They can live on your phone, your tablet, and your computer forever. And our data is being bought and sold in ways where our behavior and our profiles are being formed and shared in ways that are clearly an invasion of privacy. So what's the solution? We need a way that's where average people can agree to these terms without having to be a lawyer. You know what, that's interesting too. Like I run companies, I don't always read these terms and conditions. I have a lawyer that works for the company or a procurement officer. Right. So what if technology could help solve the problem that everyday consumers don't have a lawyer handy or a procurement team? We are essentially like a lawyer and a procurement team on your phone that's helping consumers to represent consumers and then making it easier for websites to go through the process of that contract. Because as you say, Kelsey, what brand wants to put a contract in front of somebody at the front of the store, and what customer wants to have to sign it? It's a terrible feeling too to accept this contract knowing that I didn't read it, that I don't know what you're going to do with my data.
Or also too, I know for me personally, I'm like, what are they taking? I don't know exactly what data they're taking. It could be any number of things.
Exactly. So You Own You is our platform for privacy. It's a privacy portal that iVirtual makes that makes consent possible, and we all without it being something that is frustrating. Meaningful consent is possible, where you can go about your regular life and you can have trust that the data that's being collected on you is aligned with the data that you want to be shared. And if you change your mind, or if a website owner's performance changes, like you wake up one day and you read in the newspaper about a company that has a problem, you can go into the portal and you can change those settings.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you can. And we've also developed a data subject access request. So you can ask that brand for all the data that they have on you, and you can ask them to delete the data they have on you, and they're legally obligated to do it. We make it possible to ask, and we make it possible for the brand to do it in a way where it's automatic. Because most responsible brands, they're not trying to store data or surreptitiously share it, or or whatever. So we make it possible for people and brands to kind of get along on this subject, and for average people to kind of have that classic trust but verify. That's always a good thing, right? I trust you, but I want to verify, and that's what the tool does.
Very nice. So talk to me about that target audience. I know we talked a little bit about parents. We talked a little bit about the average person. Break that down for me. Who would your target audience be?
Well, first and foremost, we're selling a software that website owners need to have, and they have to have it. Some jurisdictions aren't enforcing the laws yet, but it's coming. So we focus maybe 80% of our attention so far in Europe, and now we're doing about 20% every month, increasing in the United States and Canada. And we're talking to brand owners and website owners who want to create trust with their customers. They don't want to be caught up in the data swamp, that surveillance capitalism data swamp, where they're like, we run a free service where we can analyze the website and show the website owner what cookies are being used and what you're tracking. I'm telling you, 90% of the website owners we talked to didn't realize that they're actually tracking and sharing data to third parties.
90%?
Because so many website owners use aggregated technologies where they're just using a technology plugin, and that technology plugin is deploying a tracking cookie of some kind. So our audience, really, we're in education mode where we're helping website owners to understand their responsibilities and their options. We do a lot of free stuff with website owners to help them to be able to make good choices. We do a lot of education with users. And then ultimately, our customers are the ones that say, okay, I either have a consent management software that's not working for me, and I'm going to switch to iVirtual's You Own You, or we're helping organizations of all sizes to make their first consent management software decision. And all with the idea that these consent obligations, we can convert them from being obligations to being trust building opportunities and branding opportunities.
Talk to me a little bit about how you reach those organizations. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, so far, the best approach for us has been to work with our customers who are reaching out to their customers. So take Loanhood in the UK, for example, one of our customers, they have a great newsletter. Zomato is a restaurant engine, global restaurant engine. They have a great newsletter. They've been promoting us in Portugal as their first market. And so we work with our customers so that they can tell the story to their users. Secondly, we do our best to produce content to help explain these complicated ideas, and share them with as many people as possible. But frankly, we're a fairly new organization. We launched our product, our You Own You consent management software was launched in the spring. Data subject access request product has just been launched, and we're coming at the world with this kind of transformational approach. And we try to tell our story wherever possible, but frankly, it's part of how we'd love to find better ways to tell a story, because every time we tell it, people go, wow, that is so frustrating to me, and this sounds like a really great solution.
So profound. Absolutely. So you folks launched in the spring. Talk to me about how you were able to grow your business.
Well, we're growing our business because the problems starting in Europe are really quite conspicuous for brand owners. They're frustrated. So we've been working with some of our sales channels and some of the partners who are either on the branding or on our IT side, who are connecting with decision makers. So it's really important for us to be able to be a solution that can be promoted through different channels. And so some of our customers are able to come to us and say, this consultant or this IT professional recommended that we look at you. And then we just go through the process of educating the customers about what their choices are. So typically, if a customer wanted to learn about us, it would take 10 minutes to do a product demo, and we can do staging environments for larger customers so they can test them out. Or for many of our customers, they're sold right away, and quite literally 20 minutes later, they can have the software up and running on their website.
Right. And it sounds like that main focus is that brand awareness, because once people realize the value in your software, they're like, oh, it makes perfect sense. I understand. I want to know more.
Exactly. That's exactly where we get traction, is people want to know more. And then I think that as we grow in the United States and Canada, there are organizations, especially say universities and colleges, sports clubs, independent schools, and even public schools. They all have real problems with this data tracking, and they're scratching their head about what to do. Right. So we started doing conversations with, especially with organizations whose constituents are young people, and they have kind of a special responsibility not to be a place where a young person has to go to the website. They go, a cookie is installed on that young person's phone. Right. And now you're tracking a minor, which is violating all sorts of privacy laws. Right. And it's just the wrong thing to do, especially for a school.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about what has been the most successful social media channel for you folks to be able to educate, the different people that you're trying to reach, the different companies. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, in terms of success, when we're getting our message across on Twitter, well, frankly, we get great feedback. It's a great way to share information. LinkedIn has been fantastic for us in terms of longer form, to be able to actually unpack some of the issues with professionals who are in the privacy area, also policymakers who are interested in this subject, whether it's a policymaker for an organization or for a government. The issue of privacy is kind of orbiting all parts of our lives. So once you touch on it in LinkedIn, it becomes an area where the audience becomes quite large. So those are the two areas where we've had the most success. Instagram and Facebook, we have a small presence, but we have kind of also we still are trying to find our voice in those spaces, because in some ways we want to see those social media outlets to improve the way that they do privacy. But it doesn't mean we won't want to participate. And by the way, our view on all these subjects isn't to criticize the results. It's to look at the intention, and the intention of most website owners and application owners isn't to steal data or to abuse people's privacy. Most organizations are trying to build trust and try to become trusted partners. So any social media channel where we can really focus in on the idea of trust as a gateway to building better relationships, that's terrific for us. And everyone agrees, you cannot have trusting relationships with your customers if privacy is not if you're not achieving privacy. If you're violating privacy, you simply cannot get to trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So Chris, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate kind of like the engagement that we had about privacy, about meaningful consent, and the intent of different trusted websites. And, I loved your tagline that you folks are making sure that average people can agree to the terms without being a lawyer. I think that, that sums up, what you folks are doing really, really well.
Thanks, Kelsey. I really appreciate talking with you.
Absolutely. And before we head out, I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
So what would be one thing, both professionally and personally, that you hope to be celebrating in this next year?
Oh, that's a great question. We are aiming this year to have 3,000 websites using our software. And what we want to see is kind of a movement where all of our users are able to embrace the idea that average people can set these terms and conditions, and that personally, I can't wait to be able to navigate from all of those websites without ever seeing a cookie banner, because you won't. If I go from website to website to website, you won't see a legal agreement pop up, because each of those websites will be agreeing to my terms and conditions.
That's phenomenal. I absolutely love it, and I can't wait to see that lack of a cookie banner myself.
Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. I've got Chris here, the CEO of iVirtual Technologies. Chris, thanks for being on the show again.
Thanks so much.